Up to now, we've been talking about fences as a design element, a composition element, a space-saving element, a space-expanding element might be more accurate. But one of the fences that are very nice and we are very happy with is the Bar Mills Insta-Fence. And I will show you some pieces. I will help you build one and show you a couple of tricks. Really nice things about the fence is the way it has a tab across the top or the bottom, depending on how you hold it, that keeps the boards separate from each other. One thing that you can do in the case of the weathered fence, it's a very simple matter to just snap one off. Now you have a fence missing, you can save the board and put it on the ground later or glue it back on crookedly. Another thing you could do is if you want to make a board that's partly destroyed, you can take a clip, the sprue clippers I find work great. You can clip them off. There are handy little guidelines which I'll use later for something else. Or you might take and just split a fence. Just cut a piece and just split it off. And I've just distressed a little bit of the fence. As always, be careful not to overdo this too much. Now, putting these together is simplicity itself. We have a couple of pieces of strip wood. Thanks to the miracles of Art Fahey and his well-known staff, we have this glue. It's a Elmer's Wood Bond glue, and what it does is it has a very small nozzle which we can apply a very small coat of glue on. Even with the small nozzle, I can get messy, so I'll just take a little bit off and put it on my fingers and use the handy guides to glue the horizontal boards. I'd like to remove the comb, the sprue that's holding the boards together. There are different tools to use. A pair of sprue cutters might work, a pair of scissors might work, and at Art's suggestion, and this seems to be working beautifully, I'm just using a pair of cuticle scissors. Okay, now that we've glued the horizontal pieces on, we need some posts to hold the fence up, to stand the fence into the ground. An easy way to cut these is to take the piece, and I've cut several in advance, just line them up, take a sprue cutter, and just clip the end. We have several fences here that are assembled, and I will talk about different ways we can treat these to make them look more realistic. For reference, we have an assembled, unpainted piece. If you notice, the back side of the fence, which is the side we often do not see, is clean, where the front side has stains. The stains are a result of the laser cutting process, and we can use them to our advantage. A classic method of aging wood is to just take a wash of India ink and alcohol. There are many formulas for the precise amount. I tend to put a little bit of each in a coffee can lid and just mix as I go along. An old method, which has become obsolete, is cigarette ash and water, but fortunately, not many people smoke anymore, so this becomes difficult to use. Now, there are several ways we can change this. For these, we'll leave for now, and I'll remove these and put the painted one in the center. One simple way to age the prime wood further is to take a piece of sandpaper and, following the grain of the wood, just start to remove paint. The more you remove, taking this piece and sanded one side, so you can see the effect of the sandpaper over the primer. And we could leave it like this too if we prefer, but I'm going to do another little step. I'm going to take some paint, and it doesn't really matter what kind of paint it is. I prefer watercolors. These are acrylic hobby paints, and just apply a very thin wash over the wood. Several washes will build it up a little deeper. We can wait till it dries and apply a little bit more. That is another way to just add a little bit of discoloring and change the color. Now on the India ink fence, I have applied several signs. Now these signs are brand new, and you do find signs that are new on occasion. Now one thing we can do with these signs is we can weather a few signs, add a few more, and weather a few more, and gradually, layer by layer, put on a number of signs in different ages of weathering. Now, the sign on the black sign, I am going to make be a tin sign, so I'm not going to change that any. The sign on the other side, the Coca-Cola sign, which my finger is pointing to, is going to be a paper sign that's been stuck on, much less permanent. Since it's very difficult to sandpaper the backs of these, I'll borrow a trick from Art Fahey, and I'll do a little bit of rubbing on the front with the sandpaper. Since it's a paper sign, two effects we can add to the sign is we can curl some of it up and make it a little ragged, but slitting between the boards with a blade will also help to separate the sign from the background and make it look like it's a piece of paper that is ready to fall off. So I'll bend over a corner. I could probably distress it a bit more. I think in this case I'll carry it a little further and I'll actually tear some of it off. I may have went a little far, but if I did that, I can always glue another sign over this corner to lap it. I could just leave it like it is. If I add a little wash to it, and paint ink, I can add a little bit of a paint wash to the indie ink as well. And as you do different things, you just end up with different effects. This fence that we've weathered, and for the purposes of this demonstration, we've divided in 3 sections. This side is the fence that we colored with the primer and the washes and the sandpaper. The center section, we've put on a thin coat of white paint, just plain white paint. And we use a brush that is not really dry but not really wet. Take the brush, stick it in the bottle, wipe some paint off, and then paint. It will not become opaque no matter what you do. I would like to sandpaper a little bit at the bottom of this just to discolor it. This is the painted part of the fence, so we don't want to make it too dirty, but if I take some sandpaper and just very carefully rub a little bit on the bottom, I can take a little bit off to show the effects of moisture in animals, and just doing a little bit, we can do more of it or less of it. We can do as much of it as we want or as little as we want, but every little step we do gives each fence we have a little different personality. We've removed the paper towels so we can see what we're doing better against the darker background. We're using a very, very dry brush now with very little paint on it, so there's not much chance we're going to wreck the tabletop. And this is a much more subtle approach. This will give you a fence that is in a much greater need of a new paint job. But we could take the paint and take a brush that we've wiped almost all the paint on and just stroke vertically and gradually build up more texture, build up more wood, and we can better show the wood grain. Being wood, it's possible to add all these effects and build them up, much more difficult to do with plastic. Well, I've managed to spend lots of time talking about a simple project such as a fence, but it's good to know that we can have fun and we can play around with materials, and by trying different things, this is the only way we are going to learn new things, and the only way we are going to progress, and the only way we are going to probably be able to make models that do not look all the same. I've had a great deal of fun talking with you, and it's been fun coming up here, and I'd like to thank Art Fahey of Bar Mills for having me, and I look forward to seeing you at the various trade shows and conventions. Have a wonderful day.